How to use a new presets in Photoshop. How to use new presets in Photoshop. You should apply preset styles. Apply preset styles. How to apply preset styles in Photoshop. You can apply preset styles, by the way, from the styles panel, and the layer styles that come with Photoshop are grouped into libraries by function. For example, one library contains styles for creating web buttons, and another library contains styles for adding effects to text. And to access these styles, by the way, you need to load the appropriate library, and you can't apply, by the way, layer styles to a background logged layer or groups. Display the styles panel. How to display the styles panel? You should to choose Windows, then choose styles. And how to apply a preset style to a layer. How to apply a preset style to a layer. Normally, applying a preset styles replaces the current layer style. However, you can add the attributes of a second style of those of the current style. And you should do the following now. Click a style in the stylus panel to apply it to be currently selected layers, and then drag a style from the styles panel onto a layer in the layers panel, and then drag a style from the styles panel to the document window and release the mouse button when the pointer is over the layer content to which you want to apply the style. And note and be careful, please. Now hold down shift as you click or drag to add, rather than replace or the style to any existing effects on the destination layer. Then choose layer, then choose layer style, then choose blending options, and click the word styles in the layer style dialog box. Top item, by the way, in the list on the left side on the dialog box. Then click the style you want to apply, then click OK. And when using a shape tool or pen tool in shape layers mode, select a style from pop-up menu panel in the options bar, and before drawing the shape. Note and be careful again. Some effects, by the way, have a plus icon, indicating that they can be applied more than once in a layer style. How to apply a style from another layer. How to apply a style from another layer. In the layers panel, Alt drag if you use Windows, and or Option drag if you use macOS. And the style from a layers effect list to copy it to another layer. And in the layers panel, click drag in style from a layers effect list to move it to another layer anyway. And how to change how preset styles are displayed. How to change how preset styles are displayed. We have options. Click the triangle in the styles panel, then layer style dialog box or layer style pop-up menu panel in the options bar. Then choose a display option from the panel menu and the text only to view the layer styles as a list. Then small thumbnail or large thumbnail to view the layer styles as thumbnails. Then small list or large list to view the layer styles as a list, and with a thumbnail of the selected layer styled displayed. Layer style dialog box overview. What about layer style dialog box overview? You can edit styles, by the way, applied to a layer or create new styles using the layer style dialog box, like a screenshot now. We have layer style, and you get to choose from the stylus here now. Blending options, default, all drop shadow and inner shadow and outer glow. And layer style, by the way, dialog box. Click a checkbox to apply a current setting without displaying the effects option, and then click an effect name to display its option. And you can create custom styles using one or more of the following effects. We have drop shadow. Drop shadow is meaning that you can add a shadow that falls behind the contents on the layer as a shadow that falls behind the contents on the layer. And inner shadow is meaning that adds a shadow that falls just inside the edges of the layer content and giving the layer a receded appearance. And outer glow and inner glow. Outer glow and inner glow is meaning adds glow that emanate from the outside or inside edges. of the layer's content, and bevel and emboss. Bevel and emboss add various combinations or highlights and shadows to a layer. And satin. Satin is meaning applies interior shading that creates a satiny finish. And color and gradient and pattern overlay fills the layer's content with a color gradient or pattern. So what about stroke? Stroke is meaning outlines the object on the current layer using color and using gradient or pattern, and is particularly useful on hard-edged shapes such as type. How to apply or edit a custom layer style. How to apply or edit the custom layer style. Note and be careful. You can't apply, by the way, layer styles to a background layer in way, and a logged layer or a group to apply a layer style to a group to a background layer. First, convert it into a regular layer, and you have steps here to convert that. Select a single, number one, select a single layer from the layers panel. Number two, double click the layer outside the layer name or thumbnail, or click the add a layer style icon, FX, at the bottom of the layers panel, and choose an effect from the list. After that, choose an effect from the layer, then choose layer style submenu, and after that, to edit an existing style, double click an effect displayed below the layer name in the layer panel, then click triangle next to the add a layer style icon, FX, to display the effects contained in the style. Number 3, you should to set effect options in the layer style dialog box. Number 4, you should to add other effects to the style, and if desired, in the layer style dialog box, click the checkbox in way to the left of the effect name to add the effect without selecting it. And you can edit multiple effects, by the way, without closing the layer style dialog box. How? Click the name of an effect on the left side on the dialog box to display its options. And how to change style. Defaults the custom values. How to change style defaults to custom values. In the layer style, by the way, dialog box, customize setting as desired. Then number 2, click make default, and when you next open the dialog box, your custom defaults are automatically applied. And if you adjust setting and want to return to your custom defaults, click reset to default. And to return to Photoshop original defaults, we have layer style options here now. Layer style options consist of many options. Actually, we need to know everything about each option now. First option, altitude for the bevel and emboss effect. Sets the height of the light source, and a setting of 0 is equivalent to ground level. 90 is directly above the layer. And what about the angle? Angle is meaning determines the lighting angle at which the effect is applied to layer, and you can drag in the document window to adjust the angle of a drop shadow and inner shadow or satin effect. So what about anti-alias? Anti-alias is meaning blends the edge pixels of a contour or gloss contour, and this option, by the way, is most useful on small shadows with complicated contours. And what about blend mode? Blend mode is meaning determines how the layer style blends with the underlying layers, and which may or may not include the active layer. For example, an inner shadow blends with the active layer because the effect is drawn on top of that layer, but a drop shadow blends only with the layers beneath the active layer. And in most cases, the default mode for each effect produces the best results, by the way. What about choke? A choke is meaning that it shrinks the boundaries of the matte of an inner shadow or inner glow barrier to blurring. And what about color? It's meaning it specifies the color of a shadow and glow and highlight. You can click the color box and choose a color. And what about contour? Contour is meaning that with solid color gloss, contour allows you to create rings of transparency with gradient filled gloss, and contour allows you to create variations variations in the reception of the gradient color and opacity, and in beveling and embossing, and contour allows you also to sculpt the ridges and valleys and bumps that are shaded in the embossing process. And with shadows, contour also allows you to specify the fade. And what about distance? Distance is meaning specifies the offset distance for a shadow or a satin effect, and you can drag in the document window to adjust the offset distance. What about depth? Depth is meaning that specifies the depth of a bevel. It also specifies the depth of a pattern. What about use global light? Use global light is meaning that this setting allows you to set one master lighting angle that is then available in all the layer effects, and that use shading, by the way, and drop shadow and inner shadow and bevel and emboss. And in any of these effects, if use global light is selected and you set a lighting angle, and that angle, by the way, becomes the global lighting angle, and any other effect that has use global light selected automatically inherits in the same angle setting. And if you use global light is deselected, and the light angle you set is local, by the way, and applies only to that effect. And you can also set the global lighting angle by choosing layer style, then choose global light. So what about gloss contour? Gloss contour is meaning creates a glossy and metallic appearance, and gloss contour is applied after shading a bevel or emboss. What about gradient? Its meaning specifies the gradient of a layer effects, and click the gradient to display the gradient editor, and or click the inverted arrow and choose a gradient from the pop-up panel, and you can edit a gradient or create a new gradient using the gradient editor. And you can also edit the color or opacity in the gradient overlay panel the same way you edit them in the gradient editor. And for some effects you can specify additional gradient options, by the way, and reverse Phillips and the orientation of the gradient. Align with layer uses the bounding box of the layer to calculate the gradient fill. And the scale scales the application, by the way, of the gradient. And you can also move the center of the gradient by clicking and dragging in the image window. And the style specifies the shape of the gradient, by the way. And what about highlight or shadow mode? Highlight or shadow mode is meaning specifies the blending mode of a bevel or emboss highlight or shadow. And Getter is meaning varies the application of a gradient color and opacity. And what about layer knocks? Layer knocks out drop shadow. Its meaning controls the drop shadow's visibility in a layer. And what about noise? Noise is meaning specifies the number of random elements in the opacity of a glow or shadow, and enter a value or drag the slider. And what about opacity? Its meaning sets the opacity of the layer effect, and enter a value or drag the slider. And pattern is meaning that specifies the pattern of a layer effect, and then click the pop-up panel and choose a pattern, then click the new preset button to create a new preset pattern, by the way, based on the current setting. Click snap to origin to make the origin of the pattern the same as the origin of the document, and when link with layer is selected, or to place the origin or at the upper left corner of the layer. If link with layer is deselected, select link, by the way, with layer if you want the pattern to move along with the layer as the layer moves. And drag the scale slider or enter a value specify the size of the pattern, and drag a pattern the position it in the layer, and then reset the position by using the snap to origin button. And the pattern option is not available, by the way, if no buttons are loaded. What about position? Position is meaning specifies the position of a stroke effects as outside and inside or center. And what about range? Range is meaning controls which portion or range of the glow is targeted for the contour. And the size specifies the radius and the size of blur or the size of the shadow. And what about soften? Soften is meaning that blurs the results of shading to reduce unwanted artifacts. And what about source? Source is meaning that specifies the source for an inner glow and choose center to apply a glow that emanates from the center of the layer's content, or edge to apply a glow that emanates from the inside edges of the layer's content, by the way. What about spread? Spread is meaning expands the boundaries of the matte prior to blurring. What about style? Style is meaning that specifies the style of a bevel, and inner bevel creates a bevel on the inside edges of the layer contents, and outer bevel creates a bevel on the outside edges, by the way, of the layer contents, and emboss simulates the effect of embossing the layer contents against the underlying layers. And what about pillow? Pillow is meaning emboss. Pillow emboss simulates the effect of stamping the edges of the layer contents into the underlying layers, and the stroke emboss confines embossing to the boundaries of a stroke effect applied to the layer, and the stroke emboss effect is not visible, by the way, if no stroke is applied to the layer. What about technique? Technique is meaning smooth, chisel hard, and chisel soft are available for bevel and emboss effects, and softer and presses apply to inner glow and outer glow effects smooth pores and the edges of a matte slightly, and is useful for all types, by the way, of mattes, and whether their edges are soft or hard. It doesn't preserve detailed features at larger size, and the chisel hard uses a distance measurement technique and is primary useful on hard edged mass from anti-aliased shapes such as type, and it preserves, by the way, detailed features better than the smooth technique. And the chisel soft uses a modified distance measurement technique and also not accurate the chisel hard, and is more useful on a larger range of mattes, and it preserves features better than the smooth technique, and the softer applies a blur and is useful on all types of mattes. And whether the edges are soft or hard at larger sizes. Softer, by the way, doesn't preserve detailed features, and precise uses a distance measurement technique to create a glow, and is primary useful on hard edges mattes from anti-aliased shapes such as type, and it preserves features better than the softer technique. What about texture? Texture is meaning that applies a texture, use scale to scale the size of the texture, and select link with layer if you want to texture to move along with the layer, and as the layer moves, inverts. The texture depth, by the way, varies the degree and direction up and down to which the texturing is applied actually, and the snap to origin makes the origin of the pattern the same as the origin of the document if link with layer is deselected, or places the origin in the upper left corner of the layer, and if link with layer is selected, drag the texture to position it in the layer. And how to modify layer effects. How to modify layer effects with contours. When you create custom layer styles, you can use contours to control the shape of drop shadows, inner shadow, inner glow, and quarter glow, bevel, and emboss, and satin effects over a given range. For example, a linear contour on a drop shadow causes the opacity. A drop off in a linear transition. Use a custom contour to create a unique shadow transition. And you can select and reset and delete or change the preview of contours in the contour pop-up panel and preset manager. Like the screenshot now. you can to detail of layer style dialog box for drop shadow effect. We have A and P here now. AS meaning click to display the contour editor dialog box. BS meaning click to display the pop-up panel. And you have to, and how to create a custom contour. How to create a custom contour. Select the drop shadow, inner shadow, then inner glow, then outer glow, then bevel and emboss, then contour and or satin effect in the lifestyle dialog box. Then number 2, click the contour thumbnail in the layer style dialog box. Then click the contour to add points and drag to adjust the contour or enter values for input and output. And to create a sharp corner instead of a smooth curve, select a point and click corner. And to save the contour to file, click save and name the contour. And to store a contour as a preset, choose new, then press OK. New contours are added at the bottom of the pop-up panel now.